Hey guys, this is Kelly from Photography Hero, and I am so glad you're here. Get ready to learn Photoshop. All right, welcome back. This is my first video on learning Photoshop for photographers, so I'm glad you're here. We are going to focus today on Workspace. Workspace is one that I think will be a great foundation for us to start to build on. If you already know the Workspace, then it's time to move on to video 2. If you don't, or want to learn maybe some tips about the Workspace, getting it organized in an easy way to use it for editing your images, then this is a good video for you. I'm going to try to make this a quick video because we don't want to really bog down on the Workspace, but it is important that we cover some important things. So for the start, over here on the left side, we have our toolbar, and this is where we will find our different tools. If you'll notice, as I hover over them, I have set in the preferences, and this is a default to Photoshop, that it will tell me or define what each tool does. So that'll be a great tip for you if you want to go in and learn tools that you're unfamiliar with. I will have a video on the specific tools that we need to know as for being a photographer and editing images. I'm not going to go into every tool. I think sometimes when we're learning Photoshop, we get so bogged down in the minutia in all of these crazy settings because Photoshop can do so very much that I want us to focus on really what is specific for a photographer to know. But some things to know about this is if you see in the bottom right hand corner there is a little arrow down there. As I click and hold, you'll see it brings up multiple tools. So tools are nested together. You can also bring that up by right clicking, and that will show you what tools are nested together. Okay, something else to know is I can grab it and I can pull it off. So I can move this wherever I want to move it. And kind of on those lines, if you click on those lines, you can move it. There's an X here, so I can close it. I can get rid of it. Now, the important thing to know is how to get it back, because sometimes you might launch your Photoshop workspace or inadvertently close a panel and wonder where it went and how do I get it back. And so this will be important to learn. If you go up to Window, if you think of Window, the Window menu option at the top, think of that as your opportunity to open or close any of the windows you currently see on the screen. Even an image will appear in the window menu when you open up a specific image. But the most used windows are these bottom 3. And so if you see tools, how it does not have a check mark by it, that means that the tools are hidden. So if I click on that, it brings it back. And to get it where I want it to be, you simply drag it to the edge. And if I keep dragging, you'll see that blue line appear on the side. That's going to lock it in place or link it to that sidewall. So these are the tools. The top, this is the tool options. So these are options that are specific to the tool you are in. So look at the tool option menu up here, and notice as I click on different tools, those options change. And so these are tool specific changes that you'll make. And so we'll learn about those as we go into each specific tool to learn what options to set and how to get that tool to function or act exactly how we want it to act. Now over here on the right side, these are our palettes, and these will have these also will have different settings, tools, or options to make our images great. Let's go back up to the window menu, and I want to just show you and talk about Workspace. And so currently we are set on Essentials, which is the default, and I want you to set yours on that. And what we're going to do is we are going to create the perfect workspace for this training and tutorial. As you begin to become more self-reliant or more focused or more understanding of Photoshop, you can create the workspace that you want. In fact, you'll see I have one up here called KD, and that's the one that I use the most. But we're going to create that workspace with the essentials. So I'm going to work with you and show you how to do that. So hopefully you're doing this right along with me. So go to Essentials Default. If it does not look like what you see on my screen right now, you can go to Reset Essentials, and that will take it back to the default of what that Essentials workspace looks like. Okay, so go ahead and do that. And then what we're going to do is we are going to close out some of these palettes and we are going to open others. Just a quick side note, there is a workspace called Photography. But what I've learned and what I've noticed is some of the tools that I use are not available when I go to that Photography workspace. So I prefer the Essentials or the default, and then kind of customizing it to what I want it to be. So let's first start with libraries. Okay, so we are going to look at the right-hand side of that palette. We're going to click on it, and we're going to go down to Close Tab Group. Now, if you'll notice, the tab group is this whole area here instead of just this tab. Like, for example, this tab group has many tabs in it. This one, it looks like, just has this one. But let's go to Close Tab Group. You'll notice Libraries closes and goes away. See Layers down here. Click and drag that out here. And now the rest of these channels, paths, colors, and swatches, we are going to do the same. Close Tab Group. Whoops, did I not get it? Oh, it's closing them one at a time. Look at that. So let's close them down. Okay, and then this last one is our history, which we are going to want that one. So let's drag our history palette out here. So what we want now is we want our layers palette, and if I drag over to the line or over to the edge of the screen, that line will appear. You'll see layers has become this whole group or this whole tab area. I'm going to bring my history palette and I'm going to nest it inside the layers palette so they become different tabs. Do you see that? Then I'm going to go over to Window, and let's have you do this as well. And let's open up Actions. Okay, and I'm going to pull that here, and then I am going to nest that also. And I like my actions in between my layers and history. So layers, actions, and then history. Okay, so those three are the palettes we want open right there. We want a couple more, so let's go to Window, all right, and let's go to Adjustments. We want Adjustments. I'm going to drag it out here. And we want Properties, so I'm going to drag that out here as well. So I'm going to drag Adjustments down to the very bottom. And what that's going to do is just kind of stick it right there. And then I'm going to drag Properties right above it. So now I have Layers, Actions, and History. And then I have Properties and Adjustments. And so this workspace is going to be what I want you to use and you to have available if you plan to go through this video training series of Photoshop with me. So we want to save it in case we mess it up by dragging a palette or closing a toolbar. We want to save it. So let's go to Workspace. Let's go to New Workspace. Okay. We didn't change the keyboard shortcuts. We didn't even change the menus, but let's just click Menus and Toolbar. And let's change this to Photoshop Training. Click Save. And now when you click on Workspace, you will have Photoshop Training right there. So if I go to Essentials Default, oh, because I moved that. Let's go to Essentials. Let's go to Graphic and Web. How about that one? Let's go to that one. Okay, it changes what palettes are up. If I go to Motion, it changes what palettes and menus are there. But if I go to Photoshop Training, it brings it back to how I've set it, and everything is exactly where I want it to be. Okay, so let's now we have our workspace set up. Let's just kind of stay in here and look at these. In this last one, there's this one called, underneath this bottom bar, there is Application Frame. And what that does is basically put everything within the application within a frame, kind of like an old Windows or old PC look. If that's something you like and something you're used to, you can go ahead and select that and have that checked. I'm not going to have it on mine. Something else that might be different between yours and mine is over here in the Photoshop menu, there's Preferences. And let's go to the Interface. And you'll see that I'm set on the gray tone. You might be on one of these darker tones. And so you can set it to whatever you want. I've used Photoshop for a long time, and it's been this kind of light gray for a long time. In fact, it originated as a white. All of the palettes and menus were white, but now it's gray. I'm used to it, so that's what I like. While we are in preferences, there is one other thing I would suggest you change. Is you come to the cursors, and I would suggest that you have full-size brush tip. I would suggest show crosshairs in the brush tip, and I would suggest you have precise in other cursors. And what that's going to do is enable you, when you're using certain tools, to be able to see more precisely what you're working with. In the preferences, that is basically all we are going to work with. Now, let's go to File, and let's go to New. And let's just kind of talk about the import, or not the import, let's talk about the New Document dialog box. So what you'll see is, first off, you'll see a menu across the top to kind of give you some shortcuts in creating different sized new documents. You can save some. These are the recent ones, photos, prints, art and illustration, web. You can either select one of these presets, or over here, you can change whatever you want to create the document that you're looking for. You can add a new name up here. You can change the sizes of your document. You can have it be measured in pixels or inches or centimeters or millimeters or whatever you want. You can change the orientation from vertical to horizontal, so you can adjust that all right through here. And then you have your resolution, your pixels per inch. And this is where things can get a little bit confusing for people. The only thing I want to talk about really quickly with this is, if you'll notice in photo and print, and basically these are where you're going to output. Print is going to be more of a magazine or cards or things of that nature. A photo is going to be a photo print on photo paper. If you'll notice in both of these, notice the pixels per inch stays at 300 ppi, sometimes called dpi as well. So when you're doing something that you want to actually output or print, create an actual physical, touchable document, you want to have at least 300 ppi, and then use the size up here to determine the full size of the image. So let's go to print here, and one of them is 8.5 by 11, which is a regular sheet of paper, 8.5 by 11 at 300 ppi. That's going to make sure that when you print it, it's going to look great. And we'll talk about more of this when we have the video on cropping and things like that. But just as you create new images now, or new documents. Now, when you think about a web image, so if you're creating an image that's going to go on a website or be displayed on the web, you want to have 72 ppi. And the same situation applies. Then you would just adjust by pixels. You could still do it by inches if you wanted, but you could also adjust by pixels to get the exact size that you want for the screen image. So this would be if you're creating a Facebook banner, or for your website, you're wanting to have some portfolio images. Obviously, you don't want to have the internet loading up an image that's large enough to print. That's going to take forever for people to download that to their smartphone or their web browser to actually see it on your website. So those images have to be smaller, and that is done right through here. So what I would simply say is go ahead and just let's go to photo. And you can even hit right here, view all presets. Let's go to 8x10, landscape 8x10. So I'm going to hit create. That brings up the document right here. At the top, we have the name, which I didn't change, so it just calls it Untitled 1. I'm currently viewing it at 100%. The color space is RGB, and it's 8-bit. Let me just quickly go back there. Those were listed right here, color mode, and then the bit depth of the image. We're not going to talk about those. RGB is perfect, 8-bit is perfect. Okay? As you get more in depth in all of this, you can learn that stuff. But RGB and 8-bit, going to be phenomenal. It's going to work great for you. Now you'll notice on my document I have these rulers here. And if you go into the View menu, you'll see that I have rulers right here. If I click on that, it takes them away. If I come back, it brings them back. Something else to notice is you will see that there's a little symbol right here and the letter R. These are what are called keyboard shortcuts, and they save you time on repetitive tasks that you do all the time. Because then instead of coming into the menu to select rulers, that on a Macintosh is a command, the command key, and it has that picture on my keyboard. Command R, if I hold both of those keys together, I can add or remove those rulers with the keyboard. For a PC, it's going to be a Control R. And so getting to know keyboard shortcuts, I think, is so important and is going to help you work faster in Photoshop or any application that you use, to be honest with you. Now, one thing about the rulers is that if you click or right-click on them, you can choose what the measurements are. So I could have it be pixels, I could have it be inches, I could have it be whatever I want, okay? Then also if I click and drag, it will bring in guides. Now let's match this with the 2 inches on the left side right there. Let it go. It's a light guide. And I can drag this one in, and I can drag as many as I want here. Now, these guides are not going to print. So even though they're visible to me on my document right now, they will not print. And so that's something to know. I use them all the time to kind of make sure things are on the same perspective line, to line things up, to get them so that they fit together more cohesively so my eye sees that they look good together. So these are very important to have. And if I want to move them, I can just click on them and drag. But the important thing about moving them is you need to have the Move tool selected. Let's say I'm on the Marquee tool right here. If I try to move it, I can't. Instead, I'm creating a marquee, which is what the Marquee tool does. So let's go back to the Move tool, okay? Oops, I didn't go back to the Move tool. Let's go back to the Move tool. To get rid of them, you just drag them back to the rulers. Okay, so guides, super important, super handy. You can pull them out, you can drag them away, you can hide them, all of that good stuff. But you also need to know they won't print. So you will not see them in your finished images. Okay, so we now know how to create a new document. Let's learn how to open a document really quick. So this is a website called Unsplash, which everyone in the world should know about. It's an awesome website. Maybe you've even shared some images to it. It's a free website to download high resolution, really great photos. So let's say I like this one of the fire right here. If I click this button right here, it downloads. And I have my browser set to download right here to my desktop. Okay, so let's hide Unsplash. So I can open up that new image by going to File, Open, okay, and then navigating to my desktop or wherever it downloads. Maybe you have yours downloading to the download folder, wherever you choose. I have mine to the desktop just for ease. Navigate to it and click on Open. And Photoshop's going to think about it. There it is right there. Okay. I can also open it. Here, let me close this. I can also open it by dragging it onto the icon. That works as well. And then on my computer, I have it set to open JPEGs just by double clicking. And sometimes and that's a system, an operating system setting where you can choose what application to open by double clicking on it. And so you'd have to go into your system settings to get that set up. So that one, if that's not currently set up on your machine, you can figure that how to do that later. But use one of these other two options to open. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly hit the B key, which is going to take me to the brush tool. Again, that's a keyboard shortcut. You see the letter B right there. I have that one memorized, so I just hit the B key, takes me to the brush tool. Okay, it's going to use my foreground color. So these are my colors. This is my background color. This is my foreground color. Okay, and I'm going to come over here, and I'm just going to start painting. Now, this is a good-looking Picasso right here, right? So I have created this masterpiece right here. So first off, if I try to close it, it's going to say, wait a second, you're going to lose all of the edits that you made. Do you want to save it, cancel, or don't save? Now, if I hit save, it is going to overwrite or save right on top of my original file. So I'm going to lose the original file, which means this will now become the original file. I don't like to do that because if in the future I want to come back and maybe tone down the edits I've made or change them or adjust them in a different way, if I've saved over the original file, I can't do that. And so let's hit cancel. What we want to do is we want to hit save as. Not save. Save will do the same thing. Save will ask me my JPEG options, but it will save right over the top of this one. So do not choose save. Do save as. Okay. Click on desktop. It's going to save right to my desktop. Now down here, I have lots of different options of file formats that I can save it as. I can save it as a GIF or a GIF. I don't care how you say that. A Photoshop file, PNG, lots of different files. I'm going to leave it as a JPEG. Now, if I try to hit save right now, it's going to say, again, do you want to replace this image with the image that I'm currently saving, which again would overwrite my initial file. Now, the reason it's asking that is because the name is exactly the same and I'm saving it to my desktop in the same place. So I can quickly just click the save as a copy. It appends copy to the name and then hit save. It will bring up my JPEG options on file size and on quality. Again, let's not get bogged down in the minutia of this. Leave it at maximum. Hit OK. Okay. And now I have the copy and I have the original. So let's close this out. Okay. Let's bring both of these into Photoshop. And you will see that I have the original and I have my new masterpiece here with these lines on it. Okay? Okay, so now you know how to save images. In the future, we're going to talk about layers and saving as Photoshop files and all of those great things. But for now, we always want to make sure we don't overwrite our original file so that we keep that one safe and protected, and then our edits are something we can always go back to if we want. All right, so that is what I wanted to cover in the first video of Photoshop for photographers. And so I hope you enjoyed that. Hit subscribe so that you can be notified as the new ones come out, or so you can easily find the video playlist that will show all of these in order so that you can follow right along and learn Photoshop with me. Thanks for being here.